Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Rufus Rundown. Today we have a very special guest. It is Craig Houlden from the Anfield Agenda, my favorite Liverpool fan account and interactive account on Twitter, the best one out there. Craig, say what's up to the people of the Rufus Rundown.
How are we, ladies and gents? Pleasure to be on. I'm really excited to come on and chat about the Reds.
I'm incredibly excited to have him. The biggest guest I've had by far. I appreciate it so much for you coming on and helping me out like this and just, chatting about soccer and just obviously our favorite team in Liverpool.
We're not going to say the S word. We're going to call it football. We're going to keep it real.
I
Genuinely, man, you know this about me. I said it to you beforehand. I just see myself as a fan like everybody else. We're all the same. I mean, we all got guests to help us out on the way up, and I'm always happy to do it and pleasure to talk football.
Football. I'll go with football. I get so in between football and soccer, just in terms of depends on who I'm talking to and who I'm really, putting the content out towards. So I'm also trying to grow it. Maybe a couple of American people that'll pick up on it, but also too, I'm also trying to interact people who understand that it is football and are passionate about it too. So I get caught up. I think in the last episode I called it soccer, just about soccer a couple times, but for the most part it was football. But I tend to mix it up because of how much I'm involved with both sides of it.
Oh, I hear you. I've got lots of American friends who would be the same, and we have this debate and banter back and forth all the time.
It is football. I'm just doing it. I just do it without it's in the back of my head and it just clicks and it's just a mess. I know when I do my post, I have to tag. If I want to tag football, I do American football, and then football and another one. Or if I do a football related one for overseas football, I'll do world football, soccer with the tags of the video and stuff to try and just hit on all points of it. How long have you done the Anfield Agenda for?
Itself in its own right, I think it's just around the 2-year mark. I think we're about to hit our 2-year anniversary. To kind of give you a bit of a backstory, I suppose, on me, I started out actually being one of those Twitter accounts that was behind a fake name and a fake profile because I was so insecure. And I went on the Cop Jaffer. So that was the name that I originally started out under. And then I started to write for Anfield Index. I started to write articles for Anfield Index. And then part of being on Anfield Index was that it gave me a chance to go on their writers podcast. So anyone that wrote a piece was able to go on there. So I started in the podcast and I started saying, I'm going to start using my real name. So I changed my Twitter account to my real name and I did the podcast on there. And then I decided I wanted to launch my own podcast. That was great. Did that for a couple of years. And, you put a podcast out there and you don't get much feedback. It's kind of, you put it into the universe. You hope people like what you're doing. But at the end of the day, it's not the most interactive thing. So Connor said to me one day, he's the guy who runs the channel with me, why don't we take this to YouTube? So I said, why not? Let's go and give it a bash. I thought at the time I was 36. I thought I'm too old. I'm far too old to be starting a YouTube channel. But we started it and I loved it straight away. I love the interactivity of it. I love to be able to chat with people in real time. So yeah, it was about just over 2 years old.
So obviously you kind of touched on it, what made you decide to so obviously you said you just decided to just flip the name. You just go from that account. You had a passion for it and you just kind of decided to, switch the name and make the push for it because you enjoy it and what drives it? What drives it now, especially? You said you're a fan first, right?
Absolutely. And that's what drives. I want to build a community. There's some great LFC fan channels out there. There's Redman TV, there's the Anfield Wrap. These guys are amazing, make fantastic content. But I always wanted to be a little bit different in that I never cared about getting access to the club. I never wanted to interview Jurgen Klopp. I never wanted to interview players because I always knew that there were people like Neil Atkinson from the Anfield Wrap and Chris Pajak, and they were much Paul Machin. They're much better at that than I'd ever be. So I wanted to look at our YouTube channel and just make it a community for people to have an open place to say what they want and to speak freely. And one of the things I love about fan content is that we get to speak our mind. So if you disagree with the owners on something, you don't have a fear. You can say it. And it's okay. It's okay because we're not going to love the football club all the time. There will be issues. And I want to be able to have the freedom to speak up about that. So that's why we tried to build a community that we have. Because we noticed that there was, I won't say a niche, but there was there was two fantastically well-built platforms based out of the city of Liverpool in the Anfield Rap and Red Men, people who I respect immensely. But there wasn't really that non-Scouse or non-English channel. And I based in Ireland, so we said, let's see if we can do it. Let's see if we can do something outside of Liverpool and if it will take out. And when we started, our goal was to get to 5,000 subscribers. That was our hope. That was our end game. And yeah, it's gone quite well.
Certainly surpassed that now. You guys are up to, it was 35,000 plus too in the stream that I was checking. All right, what's the the final number right now? If it's just like up above like 35,000, all right?
I think it's a 37.6, something like that. Twitter's about 35, but yeah, it's just over 37, I think, on YouTube.
Like I said, like that's why I was saying it's the most interactive, it's the best, and you can see how that success is coming in because of how interactive and how overall the content is just incredible, in my opinion. So obviously you said you're a football fan first, and that's really the passion here. What made you become a football fan, and more importantly, a Liverpool fan? When did you know? When did you like really fall in love with the club and in love with the sport?
It's a kind of weird one because usually when you ask someone this question, they'll say it was my dad, it was my big brother. I'm an only child. My dad wasn't really into football, but yet would coach my team when I was younger. How I fell in love with Liverpool was strange. I've told this story a few times. My parents were at what I would say a dinner party, but that's being very polite about the situation. They were at their friend's house. They were having a few drinks and something to eat. And I remember I was sitting in the living room and I was watching ITV, is the UK channel at the time, I think it was. And it was the time that Arsenal came to Anfield, beat us 2-0 and took the league title on the last day of the season. And I remember being transfixed by this team that had lost but still applauded that Arsenal team off the field. And I just looked at the cop, I looked at the players, and I just fell in love with the club at age 7 or 8. And I can't explain why, because it was off a loss that gave Arsenal the first division title at the time. And from that moment on, I was transfixed, and that was it. I was a Liverpool fan.
For me personally, the person who really like did it for me, believe it or not, is Luis Suarez. So obviously like Fenway Sports Group, FSG, owns Liverpool. They also happen to own the Boston Red Sox. So their owner, John Henry, does at least. So for me, like I'm a Red Sox fan. They have like the New England Sports Network from where I live. They used to broadcast their games and their highlights on there. So I played football, soccer growing up, but I was never really like too much into it. I really grew to baseball. I really grew to basketball, but I just played that in the side because it was another season that it took up for me. So I didn't play it through high school. But, like, my friends really followed it. A lot of my friends I made through playing football growing up, I stuck around with. They got me into FIFA. I started playing FIFA. And the more I started playing FIFA, I started watching these highlights on Nesson. I started watching, Luis Suarez. This guy was electric. And it was like the season right at the tail end of this, before they made the run for the cup. And obviously the Gerrard slip and everything happened. But, especially like if it was a set moment, I think where it really clicked for me, it was that Suarez goal against Norwich where he took it off the chest, the control by the keeper, and just the tap in. Everything about Luis Suarez, I was heartbroken when he left, but drew me to not even just love Liverpool, but love football as a whole.
I was fortunate enough to be at that Norwich game that you're talking about.
Really?
Yeah, I love Luis Suarez as well. And if there is a reason to fall in love with Liverpool, he is a pretty good one, if you ask me. I mean, I love the guy because what we have to remember a lot of the time with regards to South American footballers is they come sometimes from a level of poverty that you and I might never experience. I remember reading about Suarez not being able to afford boots. And then the reason I believe he plays the game, like every game is his last game, is because of that innate fear of not wanting to go back to that poverty and remembering what it was like. And that's what I loved about Suarez. It didn't matter if he was 10-0 up or 10-0 down. He played the game the exact same way with the same ferocity. And he was a bit of a nutcase, and I love a nutcase.
Yeah, he was a little off his rocker. The criticism with him, obviously the biting's one thing, but like I took it as a passion thing. But the one thing that I always shook my head at and I never understood was that when he was playing for Uruguay in the World Cup, and he smacked that ball away to save the goal, and they eventually saved the penalty and won in penalties, and everybody criticized him. I go, he just wants to win that much. He knew that he wants to win at all costs. I mean, the guy needs to hit the penalty, right? I mean, it's not. I don't think he deserves criticism for that as much as I know it's the beautiful game and everything but the guy just put the team before himself, and even though they would be down to 10 men, he still saved that shot. And I thought more or less that's more of more of a testament to his competitive drive and just how much he wants to win, as opposed to how much of a negative attitude he has.
100% agree. I mean, I remember looking at it at the time going, that's exactly what I would have want my teammate to do. Anything, win at all costs. And I'm sure your viewers will know and you'll know as well. I've been watching The Last Dance, and Michael Jordan, that mindset was always winning is everything. And that's it with Luis Suarez. And you know what? Sometimes you want to have sports people that you can look up to, but sometimes you need winners. And Luis Suarez was an innate winner through and through.
So I've basically gone through my favorite moment, my favorite player. What would you say that your favorite Liverpool moment was, if it wasn't that first one that you had already mentioned?
Oh, look, man, I've been fortunate enough I've went to Istanbul, I've been to Athens for Champions League finals, but my favorite moment was actually one on our YouTube channel. It was the Barcelona game last season. That will never, I mean, people automatically assume I'm going to say Istanbul, but we go into this game. We were over in Barcelona and we were beaten 3-0. And it was never a 3-0 game. But we deserved much more from that game. It could have been 4. Then Bele missed a chance at the end. And Salah had missed a good opportunity for us earlier on. So we go into this game and we're 3-0 down. We've got 2 former Liverpool players coming over, along with the greatest player to possibly ever lace up a pair of boots. And we know, and Barcelona tweeted out beforehand, we just need one. Surely we'll get one, won't we? And they came. We had no Bobby Firmino. We had no Mohamed Salah. And Andy Robertson went off injured in the first half after a snidey tackle. So how we won that game 4-0, it's my favourite. And I actually took my top off on the stream and I was just celebrating. I've never felt anything like that watching the game. And to be able to share that with our YouTube audience together, it made it so much more special. So that, without a doubt, even though it's recent, it's by far my favourite.
It's obviously one of my favorites too. I think every Liverpool fan is going to say that's one of their favorites. I remember I watched the first half at home because I had work to go to. So I was home watching the first half, and then I had to, a little bit before halftime, I had to go get ready for work. So I had it on my phone. I was listening to it. And so I watched the Hendersons go. I'm like, we need to get one quick. And I was watching the game, and I go, I'm like, am I crazy here? But I think we have a shot. Like, the energy, everything was up. I was like, I mean, they can't score, but I mean, we have a legitimate shot in this one. And I came and I said, hey, dude, because I got there, when I got to work, they were just coming out of it was just around halftime. My buddy was a Barca fan. He was working back in I work in a sporting goods, so he was working back in the footwear department. I go, first person I went to go see after I clocked in, I said, dude, you guys better hold on tight. You better fasten your seatbelt. He goes, what are you talking about? I said, he goes, what? He goes, there's no way. I go, dude, I'm telling you, there's a shot. So I'm doing my work in the back. I'm listening to it. He gets the alert before me. My stream was kind of delayed. And he comes in. He goes, hey, your boys just scored. I go, told you to strap yourself in. He goes, dude, there's no way. And then, of course, Wijnaldum's the second Wijnaldum goal came. The header goal from Wijnaldum came moments right after the first one. And from then on, it was just, I was like, dude, you guys have no chance. He goes, no, I think we lost this one. I remember watching the rest of the game on the stream and listening to it with him back there and running around the back of my workplace and running around the back of my store, jumping for joy when we won it, because it was just so incredible. I was so overcome with joy right in the middle of just my work shift. It was incredible.
Yeah, I remember when Trent took the corner and Divock slotted it home. I remember thinking, nah, this isn't going to stand. The ref's going to blow his whistle. The linesman's got to put his flag up. Surely it can't be. No. And then I look at the ref. He points to the halfway line. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this is going to stand. This is actually stood. We've done this. And you just knew there was no way back. And I'll never forget James Milner up on the far side of the pitch, just drawing fouls just to kill time, and then Henderson just collapsing in sheer exhaustion. I mean, they gave everything, and it was probably Shaqiri's best performance in a Liverpool shirt as well. It was just amazing, man. What a night.
Yeah, it for me, those situations you ask, there's an extraordinary circumstance that calls for extraordinary performance. And for the most part, you normally rely on a guy like a Suarez. You rely on a guy like a Mo Salah. You rely on a Sadio Mane. You rely on a Messi or Ronaldo. We didn't have anybody out there that was really someone. So, I mean, we had Van Dijk out there, but we didn't have like an out-and-out guy that flashy, just take over a game and go for it. I mean, we had Divock Origi, we had Wijnaldum coming off the bench, and we had obviously a solid defense. But I think Trent Alexander-Arnold's even starting to get into that conversation of a player that, even though he's a defender, he's that special to be able to make an impact whenever, and especially when you need it, and he can be called on to do it whenever.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one other important aspect about that game is when we got the second, I think Barcelona started to have flashbacks to Roma from the year before, where they were in a similar situation and they got knocked out in a game that they shouldn't have got knocked out in. So they froze. To see Lionel Messi, Felipe Coutinho, Luis Suarez, Ivan Rakitic, to see all of those amazing footballers freeze in the headlights. And Suarez and Coutinho should have known what was coming. Like, they should have known better. Like, Suarez, I believe, thought he was going to get a good reception when he came to Anfield. And now, as we said earlier on with Suarez, it's about winning. We'll show you your respect after the game, but you're not getting any for 90 minutes because we want to destroy you. And it was just no other club, I believe, could have done that. No other stadium could have caused that to happen. How many times do we hear people come to Anfield and say, it's a myth? This whole Anfield thing's a myth. Man City said it. Hoffenheim said it when they came. Barcelona were saying it. Roma. It doesn't matter who you are. If you show up to Anfield on a European night, best strap yourself in.
Yeah, the only other place I really could honestly think of seeing it, even something somewhat close to it happening, is Dortmund with the yellow wall. That's really the only other place I'd give a shout to say that, wow, like this is special. This is something else in terms of the support. But Anfield, I think, is second to none, hands down, in terms of fan support, energy. It's just that genuine 12th man advantage that, I mean, none of it, what impresses me the most of it, too, is I appreciate it so much, and I appreciate that in sports a lot, and that I fell in love with this club not knowing any of that would ever exist or even existed at the time. And I just love how that just so happened to come together. And now I appreciate and support this club surrounded around this whole world, really, by people that also, support it with that much passion.
Yeah, you often hear players come in and say, I knew Liverpool was a big club, but then we go on a pre-season tour and you realize, oh, there's big clubs and there's like this level of big. And it shocks even the biggest of players when they arrive at Liverpool and see quite how, big a club we are around the world. And it's a beautiful family. It's a cringy thing to say, but it is one big family. And like that family, we'll all have disagreements from time to time. And we mightn't agree with something the owner says or something the manager does. But at the end of the day, I've always said one thing I don't like in modern day football is that some people are player specific. So some people will be a Mohamed Salah fan. Some people will be a Messi fan. For me, it's always been about the badge. I'm a Liverpool fan. Players will come and go. We'll enjoy them while they're here. But at the end of the day, I want what's best for the football club.
Yeah, that's something that happens, I think, over a lot in America, mainly American sports, too, is that people will fall in love with a player and they'll be able to switch the jerseys. I know a lot of people are fans of I'm a LeBron. I love LeBron James. I think he's a great athlete. I think, obviously, in terms of what he says is totally different. But in terms of being an athlete, I think LeBron James is, an incredible athlete. But a lot of people were Cleveland Cavaliers fans and then Heat fans and then Cavs fans and then Lakers fans. Like, they would jump to the team of where that player would go. I mean, you can appreciate a team and appreciate a player in another team. In terms of baseball, my favorite player is a New York Yankee, and that should just not happen. But like I said, I'm an unbiased fan first, but my team club is always going to be, I can appreciate it, but it doesn't mean I have to root for the team you're playing for. I can appreciate who you are as a player, but at the end of the day, my club is my club.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more.
So to move to more of a present conversation, what are your thoughts on the Troy Deeney comments? I know you got into it on the stream a little bit too, in terms of the Premier League coming back and everything, and the comments by Troy Deeney and the 6 players testing positive and 6 players and staff and everything testing positive for COVID-19 and Project Restart.
It's a very difficult one because I think we need to put aside how much footballers earn and just take that out of the equation altogether. Troy Deeney has a 5-month-old child that has breathing difficulties. If Troy Deeney doesn't feel comfortable going to train with his teammates and worrying about COVID-19, I have absolutely no issues with Troy Deeney not showing up or not going and playing for Watford. That's an internal thing. I think one thing we can't be naive about is people are going to test positive. Even with, I think there's a company that's going to be carrying out 1,600 tests a week. Every player and every staff member is going to be tested twice, from what I believe, and there's going to be a 48-hour turnaround for test results. So we've seen in the Bundesliga, last time I checked, it was 10 players that tested positive. There's been 6 positive tests confirmed from 748 so far, and we don't even know if those are all players. In fact, I think one of them may be the Burnley assistant manager, from what I've been told earlier on. So yeah, we've got to be careful, and we've got to be naive, and we've got to, or not be naive. We've got to do this slowly. And we're lucky that we can look at the Bundesliga, I suppose, and kind of take an example of the way that they've gone about it.
That's one of the biggest positives, I think, of it coming back. Not only is it positive for people to be able to have that release of sports and it being such a great league and being able to enjoy it as it is, every other sports league around the world now can look at their process and look at how they do things and really build from it. And we can see all kinds of sports returning everywhere in terms of a safe manner. So they can set the blueprint, and everybody from here on out can just continue to build on what they've built to start, and they can just continue to build up from there. And I think we're only, with medical technology and the brains and the power going into all of this thought making process and decision making process, I think that we're only gonna progress forward, especially the sports leagues and everything like that. I think eventually through time, maybe they can sell tickets to stadiums, but maybe they'll only sell 1/3 of the tickets, and they'll section people off so you're not next to people, you can socially distance. I think they'll still be able to make profits and everything. I think we will come out of this, and I think that there's smart people involved and in charge that will make it happen. But it is going to take time, and we're going to have to, be patient with it.
Over on this side, side of the pond in the UK and Ireland, I can only really speak for sports over here, but when you get sports back, so the UFC obviously came back. They were the first major sporting crowd to come back. And then we've seen the Bundesliga come back. And when you start to see a return to sport, it makes you feel like normality is starting to become a possibility again. And it makes you feel like, oh, this is comforting. And it's made me appreciate how big a factor sport has to play in society. And Gary Neville, I don't like to give Gary Neville credit for much, but I did appreciate when he said that football and the Premier League has a big role to play in this, in society. And they should be leaders. And they should be looking to set an example, because they're in a privileged position in the Premier League, especially at the top tier, where they don't have to rely on the National Health Service in the UK. They can go private, and they can do things the right way. And just getting back to sport and entertainment gives people a release. And we're all sports fans. I've been doing my nut. I mean, I've been watching replays of games. I've been watching replay. I'm a huge boxing fan. I've been watching all of Mike Tyson's old fights. I've been doing everything I can to try and get that fix, for want of a better word. And I mean, we're all going to be German football experts over the next 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it helps too. From an American standpoint, there are a lot of young Americans over there, so it's it's something that I think if there's any time for America to grasp football and hold it and take it in as its own and really start to push for improving, like the U.S. national team and everything like that. The women's teams had great success. Why haven't the men's? Why hasn't the MLS improved? I think this is a perfect time for them to really build, because there's a lot of young Americans you can watch over there. And in general, for everybody, in terms of straight pure enjoyment of watching it, like I said, it's probably the second best league in the world to the Premier League in terms of how competitive it is. It's a high quality of football.
I actually watched a fair bit of the MLS. I was over I watched Orlando City play the end against New England Revolution. I did the last season. My family tend to vacation in Florida, and I've noticed over the 7 or 8 years we've been going that soccer is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger every time I go over. And the MLS has grown, and they're doing a great job there. It used to be a glorified retirement home for some European players, but I think now they're starting to produce their own talents, and those talents are then coming across to the Premier League and stuff. So you're right. I think America, the women's national team, have done a fantastic job, of course, leading the way. And it's difficult for the men's team to come up and get to the level where the English, the Spanish, the Germans, the Dutch are, but that takes time.
What is really intriguing for me is a lot of these young players you can watch in the Bundesliga right now, a lot of these young Americans that are impressive, their primes are set to be right in like around 2026, which just so happens to be when the World Cup will be here in Mexico, Canada, and North America. That's what really intrigues me, and that's why I really want people to take a look at this, understand this, and really appreciate it, because hop it on the bandwagon then, it's going to be too late. But if you give them the support now and build them up to 2022, I think that support should build with them. I think we have a really, I'm not going to say win it, but I think we can really be a competitive force for these next two World Cups with this young core that we have. I think now, like I said, it's one of the content, it's what video that I'm planning on making too, outside of this, that now is the time for the U.S. to really take a hold of football and, start to make it its own, start to really, it be just as popular as American football. It'd be just as popular as baseball coming up. Now is really a time, a really good chance for us to make that push.
Yeah, I suppose there are some inherent differences. I mean, the way, for instance, over here, you go through as a kid and you play club football and you might play with your school, but there's no kind of collegiate system where you would go through and become a football player that way. It's usually you get spotted playing for your local club and then you get a trial, and then maybe if you do well there, you go into Liverpool's youth system or whatever. I think in America, from what I understand, that's not as commonplace as much. It's still gone through like a collegiate system, a draft system. And I think there needs to be more clubs and players being drafted from clubs, if you get where I'm coming from, or players being brought up from a younger age through the club systems.
Well, they're actually instilling that now, which is why I'm really happy about it too. And the timing, I think, is perfect, especially with the core that we have now, is that they're making a big push for a combined MLS youth program, and really having more people coming up through youth academies and such. And really not, I mean, obviously going to college and playing college is a big deal, but getting drafted and stuff, it's just not what people understand about it. It's not going to catch the eye. It's normal, but if you can make it so that it catches the eye in terms of how it's more relatable to the football that's being played over the pond, it will grow here. One thing I think that would help it grow too, I mean, the playoff system, I think, breaks it down. It's just like regular other American sports, and it's not as action-packed as other American sports. That's why baseball's starting to die. It's why football hasn't really been picked up here. It's not fast enough for some people. But if you had relegation, it'd make a lot of those league games more important. One thing that I would really push for, and I'm not on any board or anything to be able to make this decision, I've really wanted them to do a North American Super League. Why can't Canada, the U.S., and Mexico combine to make a really competitive league, with relegation and everything like that?
It's a good point, and it may well be something that you see coming down the line. I mean, in Europe, there's always been this muted European Super League idea, a breakaway from the Champions League, and it's something that I know UEFA are fighting hard to keep aside, but maybe over in America that could well be. Yeah, I mean, one thing we know about sports is you get better by playing better competition. That's the one thing you know about sport. You're only going to get better by being around and surrounding yourself with better and stiffer competition. And for the MLS and that to do better, they're going to have better competition.
Totally agree. I think, like I said, the college system is kind of is one thing, and playing in college is a big deal. But I think the best way to do that is bringing up kids to youth systems and such, and surrounding people with the best athletes and the best players and people that are genuinely committed to it here. And it allows them over here, because a lot of these players have had to go abroad. I've had like Pulisic and Serginho Dest. A lot of these players have had to go abroad, and that's hard to adjust to. It's got to be hard for an American to go over there and just hop into a German league and not only learn the language and learn the culture, produce, or go to the Dutch league, or go to the Italian league, go to the Serie A. I think it would only help more if we had a lot of those systems in place to build players up here and still keep it competitive in that matter, and keep it competitive for all of the young kids over here, because you get to stay comfortable. Eventually you can make them jump abroad, but you don't have to do it at a young age to get yourself onto that level where you're competing with a higher level of players.
I think the MLS will recognize that as well. I think you probably got some really intelligent people behind the MLS that are building a pretty good brand. I mean, it's been shown here in the UK all the time, every weekend, and it didn't used to be. So we're getting to see more and more of the players. I mean, well, I've got probably 5 or 6 MLS shirts. Every time I go over to Florida, I make sure I pick up a new shirt. I've got the Orlando shirt. I've got the Timber shirt. So I think the league is becoming more recognised, and that's only a good thing.
I think NBC Sports does a good job with it too. I've seen there's a lot of fan groups here. I know when I had a trip to Dallas, it was called the British Lion. It was a pub, and the Liverpool was playing Man City. That big game where Fabinho scored that screamer of a goal, and I was watching it there. I think it is really starting to grow here. I don't think people are acknowledging the fact that it's growing as much, but I definitely think that it is growing as a whole. And I think that the MLS is a league that's open to making adjustments. And I think that's a big thing because it's sports that, it's adapt or die. And I especially think that the MLS and with the growth of overseas, how talented the U.S. pool is overseas at least, is seeing that now that they need to make that push to growth. Inter Miami being a club that's coming in, all of this, I think the timing is perfect for it.
There's a lot of competition as well in America if you think about it. So you've got the NBA, you've got the NFL, you've got ice hockey, you've got soccer, you've got tennis. Like over in the UK, there's not as much. I mean, it's basically, I don't watch cricket, but it's football or darts, or in America, especially with the TV broadcasters and the fans, there is a lot more. I suppose, what is it? Is it baseball? Is the national sport, and something's the people, football is the people's game or something like that in the States. I know there's different phrases for them, but you grow up and they're the sports that most kids have grown up with.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've known has always been difficult. It's gonna be difficult for them to grow because there's so much more of other sports to compete with. There's so many different sports broadcasts. I'm sure LeBron James would have been a great footballer if he put his mind to it, and Michael Jordan would have been a great footballer if he put his mind to it. But they were playing in the NBA, and then you get just as many incredible athletes in the MLB, and an incredible amount of athletes in the NFL, NHL as well. So it's hard for them to compete. And like you said, there's not a lot of youth clubs now. With more youth clubs, it's going because a lot of soccer coming up to the U.S. is very tough because it's very expensive playing for travel clubs and such, and a lot of people can't afford it. If they make it more affordable through these youth clubs and such, and schooling and housing and stuff like that, I think it's going to be incredibly beneficial to the quality of player that we can put out because it's not going to be as expensive for playing for these AAU, these travel teams that go all the way around. If it's going to be more affordable for these athletes that can just pick up a basketball and dribble it around the same as dribbling a football around, I think I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, you want less barriers. Absolutely, less barriers to access. All you need is a pair of football boots, and you should be good to go. That should be it, really.
So, Craig, got a couple more questions, and I'll let you go. I know you're pretty busy, and it's late at night for you guys over there from the time this interview.
Honestly, man, I'm happy to answer. You work away, ask whatever.
So, I just wanted to, obviously my thoughts on COVID-19. I had mentioned to you a little bit earlier before we started the recording. It's not the transfer market's going to be a little messed up in terms of prices, values, teams going under, having to sell off players, but still sell off players for cheaper. One of the things that I'm interested to see, and especially coming from an American point of view, where I see like the MLB and NBA and all these other sports trade players and rarely trade cash considerations, maybe every once in a while, make these big blockbuster deals with like prospects for like one big name. I'm interested to see how the footballing world kind of implements the same process to avoid, spending a lot of money on one player. They might give up 2 or 3 of the younger players for another one of their stud players. I'm interested to see your thoughts on that.
It's definitely going to be a different transfer window. And I even hesitate to say summer transfer window because we don't know when the window is going to open. But one thing that you very rarely see in football is player-for-player exchanges or part exchanges. And one of the biggest deals that I'd heard muted before COVID-19 was that Barcelona were willing to give up Antoine Griezmann to Paris Saint-Germain plus £50 million in order to get Neymar back to Barcelona. We've seen the Mkhitaryan for Alexis Sanchez swap as well between Arsenal and Manchester United. It actually isn't that common, but it is something that I think you're right to touch on. I think we will start to see more of that this summer because clubs mightn't be cash rich, but they could be asset rich. So they might want to move on some younger players, or they might want to move on some players whose contracts are weighing heavy on the club and move them on for a talented younger player. I think you're spot on. I think we're going to see a different transfer market than we've seen before.
Last question for you. I'm pretty sure I already know the answer, but do you believe that there is a tainted asterisk type of quality to this Liverpool title?
How can anybody accuse us of that? We are 25 points clear. We have drawn one game, lost one game, and literally dominated the league. So look, it's so Liverpool that this happened, isn't it? Really, after a 30-year wait, it would just be our luck that this happened. But at the end of the day, I think even the most ardent opposition fans, they will have a go. They will try and say it's an asterisk title. They will try and say that we won it because X, Y, and Z. They tried to tell us that when VAR came in, we were going to be in trouble. And hey, VAR comes in and Liverpool walk away with the league, and all of a sudden we're Liverpool. They will have a go at anything. And you know what? I love it. I love knowing that we're living rent free in these people's heads. And I don't ever go and try and banter and wind up other clubs' fans because I don't care about other clubs. But for me, man, nah, there's no way. We're 25 points clear. I want us to break Manchester City's 100 points tally. That's what I've always wanted for this season. I still hope we can do that.
That was one of the things that I really focused on too. I was like, I don't like. It got to a point where it was like, where you had said it too. I'm not even afraid to say it out here. We're winning the title, and that was even before 25 points. And I was like, that made me say the same thing. I said to my friend, like, dude, I don't even care about the title anymore. I want to break Man City's record. And he's like, dude, you can't say that out loud. I go, dude, there's no way we don't walk away from this without that was before the Man City game. I was like, dude, we're winning this title, hands down. We're winning this title, and we're gonna win it no matter what. Now, I don't think there's a tainted quality to it either. It kind of segues into another question I had for you in terms of what do you think about the toxicity of football Twitter. I mean, as a Liverpool fan, I like it too. I've responded to you a couple times saying like they just can't stomach the fact that we have such a good system in place from our owners down to the ball boy, literally the ball boy giving the ball to Trent Alexander-Arnold quickly for that corner. We have a system in place that's not only set to succeed this year, the year after. We have a good 5 to 6 year window right now, and maybe even in the youth team below that, especially with FSG thinking of buying Rangers, who just happen to be coached by Steven Gerrard, that we have a lot of success, not only for this period of time, but really set to have it in the future too. We're really set to be able to build upon it.
I definitely have a love-hate relationship with Twitter, for sure. I mean, I've met some wonderful people through Twitter, lifelong friends that I never would have met otherwise. I've also got some of the worst abuse I've ever had aimed at me, myself, my family, and stuff that's way below the belt. But as you said and touched on before, I try not to let these things get to me because the anonymity that social media gives some people to hide behind a keyboard. You're sitting here now in front of a camera with your face on a microphone. That takes guts. I go on YouTube every day and I'm there to be taking shots at. And that's fine. When I signed up to do this, I knew. But when you start having to go at people's families and stuff like that, to me, that's below the belt. And you can have a pop at me all you want. I'm putting myself in this position to do so. It's up to me whether I read the comments or not. I probably shouldn't bite on a lot of the things, but at the end of the day, sometimes there's only so much crap that you're willing to put up with. And right now, as we speak, I'm on a Twitter ban, so I can't even log into the account because I had a pop at somebody who had a go at me. But it is a love-hate relationship. But opposition fans, they only hate us because we're dominant. That's the most important thing. You think back, you said when you fell in love with the club under the Suarez era, 13-14, around that time, we weren't as relevant just before 13-14. There wasn't as much hate towards Liverpool fans on social media as there is now. And that's only because we're successful.
Yeah, I think that success breeds hate. And I love every second of it. As frustrating as it can get if you is continuing to scroll through. At the end of the day, you're not lifting that trophy. So what does it matter? What is you behind a screen, behind some player avatar? What does it matter when at the end of the day, the club that I support and put a love and a passion to and watch week in, week out is lifting that trophy and is set to lift it the year following too, is really in good position to do such. And for further notice, really, with what Klopp's put together, that's the club I support, and you don't support it. You can hate it as much as you want, but your club's not lifting that trophy. So you're just noise at that point. They should be.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I just wonder why, we seem to be the most hated fan base on social media, and I maybe it's a bias point because we're inside the camp looking out, and I just don't see why. But any Liverpool fan that I speak to, or if you speak to opposition fans off Twitter, they will say Liverpool fans are some of the most knowledgeable, down-to-earth, respectful people. And I always fight for our fans because I don't understand why we get labelled as toxic, or I don't understand why we get labelled as arrogant, because that's not the Liverpool fan base I know.
Well, I mean, you poke the bear enough, you're bound to get bit at one point. I think that it's toxic as it is, and we're so targeted. Like when they can give it, but they can't take it. So they'll give all this trash, they'll throw all this trash at people and all this hate at people. Then they'll finally snap. And like you got a Twitter ban. He has to report it. He's not a fan of that. You know, they're out there baiting and everything, and then they finally have someone snap back on them, and they can't take it. They can't handle it. And all of a sudden, we're the most toxic fan base because on top of that, we're dominant. We're beating their team, and they're beating their club.
Yeah, as I said, I'm on a Twitter ban because I posted up a picture of myself and my wife. The guy responded by belittling my wife and my appearance, and I basically said to him, like, I looked at your account, mate, and it's full of pictures of me. You are literally just set up this account to troll me, and I had to go with him, and he reported me, and I got a Twitter ban. And look, I'll learn a lesson from that. I won't bite next time. I'll just block and move on. And that's, I suppose, the one piece of advice I would give to people is if you can't set your own Twitter agenda. You can follow who you want to follow. You can mute who you want to mute, but just don't let it get you down. I mean, sometimes we talked about this beforehand, and I said I often come off Twitter and I find I'm really angry, like at home, and I don't know why, because I've just looked at this app on my phone, which I have a love-hate relationship with, and I come off it and I'm feeling angry. So sometimes, I don't know about you, but sometimes I just need to take breaks.
Yeah, I like I said, I've deleted my social medias before and stuff too. I like to limit my time and try to limit my feed to stuff that's really important to me, to information. I have my feed set up with like the Athletic UK and all kinds of ESPN and stuff like that, of stuff that's just genuinely knowledge-based stuff that I can comment on, but I don't really have to look at what anybody else is saying about it or saying about me. I mean, I'm always open to constructive criticism. If you genuinely think there's something that I need to change or you don't like, that is fine by me. But if you just have to go at me for my appearance or something of other parts of my account, or you need to, go to name calling or anything like that, I'm genuinely open to something that you dislike and would like me to change. I'm always open to that. But just to have to all the bait and the hatred on there really just it does get you angry. It does get you down. I totally agree with that.
You touched on it at the start, and you said that I'm one of the more interactive people with regards to comments and stuff on Twitter. I genuinely try to respond to every email we get, every reply on Twitter. But what will end up happening is people will end up driving other accounts that are similar to me that love interacting with other fans. They'll end up driving them to what I just call post and ignore. So we'll just post up what we want to say, and we won't read any of the comments. I love interacting with people. I love responding to people and having a bit of fun on Twitter. And I think it's how we've grown our channel and how I've grown that account is I've always made sure to try and be interactive, because you can't let the negative aspect outweigh the positive. And there's some great people on there, and I want to continue to interact with those people moving on.
Well, it's what drew me to you, is just the interactivity. I mean, you can go retweet a bunch of stuff from any other account, but then you reply and, it just sits there. Maybe other people respond to it. Maybe people don't. You personally reply, and you can have a conversation, pull through and have conversation with other fans there that are, relatively knowledgeable as well too. So, and I've never have I gone underneath an Anfield Agenda post and post something. Maybe people disagree with it. You've disagreed with me before, like with my thoughts on what I think about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, but it was never toxic. It doesn't have to be toxic. Why should it be toxic? It's just an opinion-based discussion on football, and it doesn't have to be toxic like that. And people are just upset that they don't have the success as us or have, the knowledge of us, and they have to resort to other things. It's sad, really, but it's also really impressive when with you and your page, what you're able to do and how positive it's supposed to be for not only you, but for the community as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mark Goldbridge might have been the one that said this originally, and I like to try and give credit where, but like rivals, not enemies. That's a phrase that I really like. I mean, opposition fans can come in, or even you or I as Liverpool fans, we can disagree, but there's a way of disagreeing. You are fully entitled to your opinion, and I respect you having that right to the end of the earth. But you just want a bit of decency and how people we disagree. That's okay. So we'll shake hands and move on. But it's not, if we disagree, somebody, sometimes people just get angry and snap because you dared question them. Whereas, most of the time, that's okay. We can have a bit of back and forth. And, a lot of the time I've learned a lot of stuff from people. I've gone, oh, you know what? I didn't think of that perspective. I've learned something today, and that's good.
That's one of the things I enjoy about it too, is like, especially with people with statistical like backed arguments too, like statistics that I'm like, wow, man, I'm wrong. Like that guy's actually a really good like player in terms of, I know the analytical movement is huge in America, and one of the biggest clubs that have actually have made the push for analytics and have shown success for them because Liverpool just won the Champions League. Liverpool brought in a throw-ins coach. They've really pushed for analytics. They've pushed that. A team. I forget what the number was, but teams throw away a certain amount of possession, literally throw it away off the throw-ins, whatever percent of the time. And Liverpool wanted to cut that percentage down because possession is possession. You take advantage of the ability to have it. And that's why I really like people that are able to use statistics as well too, and just all around just be positive, and whether even if they disagree with you, being able to learn something new. That's what social media really is about. That's what it's for. And I wish more people understood that and could go about their business on social media in that way.
I remember a beautiful story I heard about the Leeds coach Bielsa. It was from a former goalkeeper of his, and he was saying that his coach was watching, scouting his opposition as he always does, and he said that he was given this piece of information that every time the goalkeeper got the ball, he was to just boot it as long as he could towards the corner flag out for a throw in the far end. And he was getting booed by his own fans. They couldn't understand what he was doing. But Bielsa had realised that this team were awful at turning over possession in their own half, and they were awful at throw-ins. So his instructions to his goalkeeper were to put the ball deep into their territory, and then we'll win and turn over possession down there, and we'll have a greater chance of attacking. But the fans didn't know this at the time. These beautiful little stories and things like that are stuff that I would not have learned if it wasn't for Twitter and social media. So, yeah, again, love-hate relationship.
And I think one of the most positive people on social media too is Jurgen Klopp. I think what impresses me most about him, in terms is the videos he's put out. He doesn't really give he's not putting political opinions out there. He's just respecting what's going on. He never really gets himself into trouble in terms of what he's saying. He's always positive, building. He's a funny guy, but he's really embodies, I think, the image of Liverpool. And it's hard. I mean, obviously, people think Messi wins this and Ronaldo wins that. When people talk about Liverpool, they just talk about how dominant Liverpool is. There's not a set player really talk about. I mean, I guess Van Dijk really does get a lot of that praise, but the manager's getting just as much praise as anybody else. And I don't think, often we really see a lot of that outside of maybe Guardiola and Mourinho, but really no one like Klopp in a sense of like the quality that he's been able to build up. Because I saw a thing on Twitter the other day, like where those players that we bought came from. Wijnaldum was getting relegated with Newcastle. Robertson was getting relegated with Hull. Shaqiri was getting relegated with Stoke. Salah was out of the league. He was a Chelsea reject. Mane was with Southampton. Like all these players are now world-class players, and they've been built under the tutelage of Jurgen Klopp. So, I mean, I think all around his image, his passion, and everything speak just so well for what the club as a whole wants and embodies.
I think that was summed up best with the disappointment we suffered last season. I mean, it went down to the last day of the season. Manchester City went 1-0 down. We thought maybe, just maybe. And they went and won their game, and they won the league after putting a run of, I think, 13 games together. And I wondered, yes, we went on to win the Champions League, and that was amazing, but I wondered how that was going to affect the mentality going into this season. Would they be down about it? Would they be hurt about it? And how dare I have questioned them? Because Jurgen Klopp has instilled the mentality of we go again. And we go again. And if it was to be all, it won't happen, but if it was to be all null and voided this season, I've no doubt that they'll go back again next season and we'll win it then.
And it's why I've seen people with some hate for FSG, which I don't understand. They're saying, oh, they don't want to spend money. They don't want to do this, they don't want to do that. I go, I'm biased too, because like I said, I've seen them with success with my sports teams outside of Liverpool as well. I've seen them win with the Red Sox, a team that hadn't won in 86 years, win it in 2004 for the first time in 86 years, win it in 2007, win it in 2013, and win it in 2018, one of the most dominating seasons of baseball that the world's ever seen, and easily the Red Sox organization has ever seen. And they're running my football club as well, the football club that I've fallen in love with. And a lot of people are throwing hate out there. I go, they have their guy in charge. They're going to give him whatever he needs to succeed because he's already proven the success. If Klopp doesn't want to spend money, he's not going to spend money. If he doesn't want to buy players, he's not going to.
Some of this is subjective. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I think that he has all the support system in place to run the club the way he needs to run it, and I think it shows. I think it shows FSG's faith in him, and I think it shows the success that we've had.
I don't get the hate that they've had either. I mean, have they made mistakes? Yes. I mean, I know about the curse of the Bambino. I know that when they were looking at Fenway, they were thinking, do we redevelop? Do we knock it down and go again? And they redeveloped. And at Anfield, a similar thing. They then made the right decision. They listened. I mean, they came into the sport. It was a new sport to them. Yes, they have a background in owning, I hesitate to say sports franchises, but in owning sporting companies. And they came to Liverpool and they made some mistakes along the way. But I like to look at it this way. We have owners that bought the football club, that wrote off the debt, that to my knowledge haven't taken one single penny dividend out of the football club yet, reinvest every penny that we get in player sales, have built Jurgen Klopp a £50 million training facility, have built a new main stand, are going to increase the Anfield Road end, have brought us in the best centre-back in world football, have brought us in the best goalkeeper in world football, have brought us in the best manager, in my opinion, in world football. And yeah, there'll be a couple of mistakes along the way. There'll be a few PR gaffes. But overall, I don't see how any... Like, I like to equate it like this. If I go and buy a house, and if I go buy that house and it... sorry, just 1 second. My monitor's doing something to me here. If I go and buy that house and it... I put an extension on the side of it, and it increases in value. Nobody's complaining. So if FSG buy Liverpool for X amount and they come in, make it better and flog it off 10 years down the line and make £1 billion, I don't care. They've run the club really well when they've been here and they've earned that money.
Yeah, one of the positive things I've seen too with them is they're looking into buying Rangers as well. And aside from people who may like or dislike, Celtic or Rangers, whatever it is, as an unbiased fan of like any of the Scottish league teams, I'm intrigued by that because I think that could be, we have our youth system, not only, and we have a trusted coach there in Gerrard, and no matter who's there, we'd have the connection between the two clubs. So if you want to loan a player out to get him first team time, what better place to do it than under Steven Gerrard, who used to coach in the youth teams? And then Gerrard's going to get to work with players that hopefully when Klopp, decides to step down, decides to retire, or whatever time Klopp leaves, hopefully when that happens, we can pull Gerrard in, and Gerrard's working with the same players that he was working with at the Rangers that he is at Liverpool, with a bunch of more talent that was already at Liverpool, and obviously the funds to spend.
Yeah, the dream is for Stevie G to come in. I wouldn't write off Pep Linders, by the way, just yet as a future potential coach, but the dream is for Steven Gerrard to one day come and manage the club. But for me, I think most of us, he has to earn that right and not just be given it because he is a great.
Yeah, I agree with that too, because Pep Linders has done an incredible job as well too. I've seen a lot of the Athletic articles. James Pierce doesn't speak highly enough for Pep Linders. So I think regardless of who it is, I think, like I said, I was saying yesterday in the podcast that a lot of these teams and a lot of franchises in sports, you can throw money at all your problems. It's not going to fix everything. You can bring in the most talented players. It won't fix everything. You can bring in the best manager in the world. It's not going to fix everything. And you need to, from the top down, to be the best, you have to build everything from the top down. Like I said, the ball boy, be the best that you can be. So I think that no matter what, starting at the top, I think there's a lot of faith in Klopp from the ownership, and I think that we should be able to reciprocate that trust to them. Obviously, Rodgers had his time and then he struggled. But I mean, I think at the end of the day, the system is in place now, especially under Klopp. I think that he's no matter when he does decide to leave, it's going to be set up well behind him, whether it be Pep Linders or Gerrard or whoever it may be. I think that FSG will have faith in what Klopp has set up and will be able to move on from there. Not that I'm looking forward to that or anything, and I'm hoping it's well down the road.
When he came in, he said he wants to leave the club in a better place than when he arrived. And I think we can safely say he's going to do that.
Absolutely. But I think that's all the time I'll take of you, Craig. I appreciate you for coming on so much. Incredibly thankful for this experience. So, guys, please head over to the Anfield Agenda, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Give Craig a follow. Liverpool fan, football fan. Like I said, the most interactive, most fun account on any of the social medias, in my opinion, in terms of football fan accounts. He's hopped on here to help me a ton, always interacts with me. He's helped me out a ton. So be sure to drop likes, subscribe to him, follow him on all those social medias, and be sure to follow the Rufus Rundown on social medias and subscribe and like as well. But thanks again, Craig, for coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm always happy to come on and talk football.
And hopefully sometime in the near future we can have Craig back on, especially when Premier League football restarts back up. Everybody's going to be looking forward to that. But until that time, see you guys later.
Bang.